The grid and the snap to grid option is a very good drafting aid in GardenCAD. Here I have a drawing that's where the base unit is feet, so I'm working in decimal feet, so 27.5 is 27 feet 6 inches. But I can set up an electronic grid and start designing on that grid if I want. If I right click on the desktop where nothing is selected or in the drafting area and pick drafting aids, the first of the tabs that pops up in this dialog box is a grid tab. And what I've done here is set the size of the grid to be 5 feet or 5 units for the minor grid, and the major grid to be 4 times that. So the bold step or major grid will be 20-foot intervals, and the shorter or smaller grid size will be 5 feet. I'll have the grid above the drawing. I could have it below the drawing, and I could change the colour of the grid, but we'll just have a look at this. So we go OK, and the grid doesn't get turned on unless I indicate it. So let's go back to drafting age, and I want to show the grid. You can see you can use function key 7 to turn that on and off. It's a toggle. So now my grid shows. So it's 20 feet from one major grid line to another, and you can snap to the individual sub-steps, if you like, on the minor grid. But to do that, you'd have to go to drafting aids and say, I want to snap to grid nodes. So now if I wanted to draw a line, I'll use the L shortcut. I can click to a minor grid line or go across, a major grid point, and from major grid point to major grid point, so I'm drawing a rectangle now, 20-foot square, but I could repeat that line command and draw from 2 minor grid points to another 2 minor grid points. I'll just zoom in a little so you can see that, and then click. So can you see I can change that grid very, very easily. It's sitting above the drawing at the moment. So let's turn off the snap. So right click, drafting aids. Let's not snap to the grid nodes, but let's say we want colour of the major grid point. Let's make it nice and bright. We'll make that an orange. We won't set the other. You could use any RGB or hue, saturation and luminescence settings that you might wish to use, and we'll OK that. And we'll put the grid now below the drawing. So now you can see our bold step is still white. I forgot to take off our snap to grid nodes, and I'll OK it. Now we have our bold step white, and our minor grid is in that red colour, and it's below the drawing. If we zoom in on this area through here, you can see those grid points are underneath our symbols. So that's a very handy aid to put an electronic drawing aid there. Your grid doesn't have to be dots, it can be ruled lines. There are lots of options there that you might want to play with.